Hey guys, how's it going? A theory I have for Bad Batch is in regards to Captain Rex. Ever since the finale of the Clone Wars Season 7 and the second episode of the Bad Batch, where Cut told us that Rex was just passing through a day ago and informed him of Order 66 and what it was doing to the clones, I think it would be really interesting if there was a storyline where Rex went to find a fill switch that reverse orders Order 66. For example, uttering an order that reverses the manipulations of the inhibitor chip, shutting it down entirely. Or perhaps since Hunter can sense electromagnetic fields, maybe he can manipulate them in some way and short-circuit the inhibitor chip if he gets hold of the weapon or some weapon or apparatus of some sorts. Rex and Ahsoka could be scouring the galaxy right now, going to different planets in order to crack an Imperial system, much like in Rogue One, where Jyn saw all the different code names for future Imperial projects, perhaps giving them information on how to shut down all inhibitor chips. With a plan so methodical like Order 66, what if something went wrong, and the clones needed to be shut down? Perhaps that was Palpatine's design, that he never wanted them to be able to be shut down once Order 66 had commenced. That all said, and herein lies the theory and the facts behind it, Tarkin was able to manually increase the power of the inhibitor chip in Crosshair. This tells me that this machine, just as they could increase the chip's effectiveness and power for Crosshair, who needed more juice in order to be controlled due to his mutation, it could also be decreased, nullifying the chip completely, in theory, which is the point of this channel. That regulator that we saw them use on Crosshair showed us that there is a way out of this. The only problem is, you'd have to put 1 million clones in one of those machines, willingly, and try to decrease their power of their inhibitor chip in their heads one by one. Now also in theory, it could work, okay? But this is where Tech and Echo come in, and I think there's a reason that they're made to be these techie dudes. What if they were able to create some sort of machine that sent out a wave or pulse, just like that one that we saw with Crosshair, but perhaps a bit different for efficacy, and apply it to worlds of different clones, all starting with Kamino, sending each clone into an uprising once they snap out of their inhibitor chip's mind control, understanding what was being done to them, like they were lab rats, pawns for the Emperor to play with in his game of galactic conquest. The clones could band together and try to overthrow the Empire. A revolution would begin, and this is where we could see more of an insurgence of stormtroopers, enlistees, recruits, as Tarkin puts it. Remember, Palpatine doesn't really care for the clones. They're expendable. He just wants sheer volume and numbers to look more impressive and at a fraction of the cost. Hunter could somehow manipulate the EMF, the electromagnetic fields, of the signals sent to all clones, or at least detect it in some way and broadcast that to a broader number of clones. The only problem is that during this time, the clones who haven't turned yet could already be trying to fight their own brothers for treason, kinda like we saw at the end of Clone Wars Season 7 with Jesse and Rex and Ahsoka. This is where I could see Vader come into the picture with Crosshair, as now the Bad Batch and Rex have become too powerful in their uprising, and they need to be controlled. In the end, Vader destroys them all, naturally, and Crosshair sees him do this as he helps, until he sees enough and realizes he can't kill his own brothers. So now he ends up turning back to their side, and at the last moment, shoots Vader in a critical spot, perhaps in the chest box or the helmet. Now Vader might sense the betrayal and the blast, so maybe he'll be alright, but if that were to happen, I don't think Vader would even be affected by this. He's ready to die, and so are the boys. Crosshair, if he would turn, is ready to die for his brothers. Now, this could possibly be shown in the Bad Batch show itself, maybe an episode, and we know we're going to see Rex because we saw him in the trailer. Or it could lead into the Ahsoka show, into live action, or it could lead into a separate spin-off show with more animations, with more stories just following Rex's journey during this time. I mean, that would be pretty awesome. It seems like we're getting a lot of spin-off shows covering these characters who aren't necessarily the main characters or sub-characters even like Rex, but in turn we get to see so much of these characters that we love and have grown up with, like Rex. This is also a theory that I have, is that we'll see Cody and so much more in the Kenobi show. Just kind of like how The Mandalorian brought in Boba Fett and Bib Fortuna. These shows have the ability to bring around different characters from different timelines depending on, when this show is taking place, and to highlight certain characters from a different point of view, essentially making small cameos here and there. Now, it's very possible that by the time Rex finally figures out how to reverse Order 66, he only manages to get it through to Wolf and Gregor, which is why we see them together at the very end. And perhaps, maybe the clones do end up revolting against the Empire, and they end up being killed. And there could be a massive revolution, there could be a massive war between the clones and stormtroopers. I mean, how wicked would that be? They would have to change a lot of, legends and new canon and stuff like that. But hey, it would be pretty cool if we have a whole bunch of clones fighting stormtroopers and we just see how freaking amazingly elite they are in comparison. Now, this could also lead to the fact of why stormtroopers are such terrible shots, because as we saw in today's episode of The Bad Batch, episode 3, we were told that the clones would train the enlistees, would train the recruits who would become stormtroopers. But if there are no clones left, then no one's there to train them, which could explain why they suck. Plot armor aside, of course. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think the clones could actually be reversed when it comes to Order 66? Do you think they can go back to normal? I mean, it seems like they could. It seems like if they just shut off that inhibitor chip, they would fully be able to retain their memories and go back to the way they were. My only question is, would it leave any damaging effect? What if they all took it out of their heads? What if, Fives ended up getting through to everybody, but now it's just Rex carrying out, his last wishes? And as more research has been done, we have Omega now telling the clones that basically Order 66 is controlling people's minds, controlling the clones' minds, and it's really not their fault. As, Hunter was upset at Crosshair, she set him straight and said, look, it's really not his fault, he can't control it. And this, to me, speaks volumes about her character, first of all, but also it lets me know that, hey, why is Crosshair the only one that's executing Order 66? Sure, they ramped it up in his brain, but before that, he was still exhibiting orders of Order 66 and mind control. So is it like some delay factor, or is he not as strong as the other ones, that his mutation allows the Order 66 to permeate through his mind and control his functions, control his brain? Or is this some sort of a latent defect that will later on, just take some time to affect their brains? And perhaps this will happen to Wrecker, as we saw him hitting that part of his head where the chip was, and then grabbing it with this throbbing pain that just kept coming back through the episode. And then will it happen to Tech? Will it happen to Hunter? I don't think it'll happen to Hunter because he has this electromagnetic field thing, and I just feel like he might be able to short circuit something in his own head. And he is the leader of the Bad Batch, which makes him the strongest, in my opinion, and he seems to be the most level-headed and the most in command, so I think he is going to be okay, but in the end, I'm very, very worried that all of the other Bad Batch are going to turn, except for Echo, of course. So in the end, we'll only have Hunter and Echo and Omega, unless Omega executes some order herself, which is freaky to think about too. Maybe she has some crazy latent powers that we haven't seen yet. And maybe Omega was actually that experiment that Lama Su was working on and Nala Se were working on. And maybe this is what they were trying to do with her. They were trying to make a super clone, superior to all the rest. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have a great rest of your evening, and may the Force be with you.